most importantly, because going after our elders, we were so patient. A lot of time was taken, and with much respect, if they needed more time, for me, that was okay because that session was a wonderful session. And again, thank you for our elders. And one of the things that Dr. Ryan mentioned is what I want to start with. But before we start out with that, I'd like Shalom to hand it over back to Shalom to get us started with somewhat of a really question to open the dialogue that we start with. Okay, Jazakallah khair. So the question is pretty straightforward. And we got to listen to a discussion. We didn't really get participation. You and I can just talk with it. It doesn't do much. So we went through that, and the question posed is simply, what is the new norm for you? We're talking today, right? What is the new norm for you? Think about September 2019 versus September 2021. The simple question, what is the new norm for you? Whether it's work, at home, how you handling kids, what skills you've acquired, things you've discovered about yourself, how you socialize. What is the new norm for you? I'll go first. How about that? I can say, let's talk about skill. So a skill. One of the skills I learned during the pandemic, I remember it was right after Ramadan 2020. I knew how to roller skate. But what did I do? I went out and I bought myself some roller skates. I wasn't able to go socialize with people, so I said, let me buy myself some skates. I know the road. What did I do? Bought some roller skates, and that was great for me. I bought some roller skates, and until now, that's like my second form of transit right now. Before the pandemic, that wasn't even a thing that was with me, So something small like that.
I like that. I like you shared that, Shola, because one of the things that we're going to get to, hopefully, if we have time, is reinventing yourself. How do you reinvent yourself during, this new normal that we're seeing? A lot of changes have occurred since, pre-pandemic, and how are we adjusting to those changes? What are some new things that you've developed during this pandemic? Anyone, please be open to share. Like Shola just shared, he developed a new skill. For me, I'll say personally, I developed my skill in barbing. Now I can cut someone's hair excellently. That's a new skill. How does that affect? What was the impact? How does that affect our mental health? This basically we will get to, but I just want for now for us to share open dialogue, your own experiences during the pandemic and how you've been able to adjust. Anyone?
I will share mine.
Yeah.
When you say you can get haircuts, that's me too. I can suddenly just scrap everything off and it's gone. So one interest I developed during this pandemic is fishing, right? And my wife and I went on vacation during pandemic. And that area was on a boat on the lake, and the person on the boat introduced us to fishing. Just catch one, just do it. And I was interested in it. So when I got home, I was like, you know what? Instead of me sitting at home, let me go fishing. And since then, subhanallah, the atmosphere is peaceful. Personally, each time I come back home, I feel refreshed, I feel energized, and I'm ready to go again. I look forward to fishing. So that's my own personal experience, and I love it. Alhamdulillah.
You might have to teach me.
Yeah, real fish. Yes, for sure. And I take it home, and we have dinner. We snack with it. For sure. Alhamdulillah.
Anybody else? What is the new norm for you? It can be in all these different capacities. How you socialize, what you've learned new, how you're doing with work.
School, working from home.
Kids. We want to know.
Yeah, so I work from home, but I think during pandemic, I learned to cut my hair. I don't have to go to the barber shop as much as I used to. And I think one thing that is also very important is I used to commute to work, but now I use that time to exercise, which I think a lot of people can do. Yep.
It's a great use of time, mashallah.
MashaAllah. Good.
Anybody else? Something new, something that has happened for you during this pandemic.
My new normal is riding a bike. So within my neighborhood. So that's what I'll be doing. And working from home as well.
Yeah, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
How many miles do you ride a day? Brother Sharaf, how many miles can you ride?
That's good. So far, so good. I'm hearing, skills that were required. I'm also hearing about transitions that we've had to make with work. I want to hear more, though. I want to hear more from others. It doesn't necessarily have to be a skill. It can be a challenge, something you observed. But what are you finding is your normal that's new?
I go to work every day before the pandemic, but I discover an online job because I don't want to go to. I'm scared to go to work, and I don't know I can get the same pay that I'm getting by going to work and still get it online. I got that skill because of the pandemic. Thank you.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah. The thing that's really, when it started, I was scared. Honestly speaking, I was scared because of the age bracket and the rest of it. And I used to go to the mosque for Fajr. The mosque is not far from home, but when they said trust yourself first before you trust others in this pandemic, so I stopped going to the mosque in the morning. Even throughout for a good 1 year, I didn't go to the masjid to pray. So I sat down one day. I said, "What am I going to do with all these things?" The company that I am a partner in, we've completely closed down because of this. The business itself was frustrated by this pandemic. So what do I do? So I started going into, I enrolled with Google project management something, and I found that with my background, I found out that everything we do in life is a project. No matter how little it is project. And it's very interesting, and I hope to make use of it effectively. Thank you.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
I think you have one more back there.
I'm hearing a common theme, though. I'm hearing I've been scared. I've been anxious. Loss of job, loss of employment. These are common themes that we're seeing during the pandemic, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you've been adjusting to that, and ways that we could incorporate self-care to make sure that these stressors that we're seeing do not weigh us down. Okay, I've kind of revamped the slides I have because of time, so I'm going to just go straight to the toolkit after we hear from you.
Yeah,
Please share.
Yeah, so for me, so my job, the nature of my job actually require me to be in the office and collaborate with some other department. But when the COVID hit, we all forced to work from home. So it was kind of difficult, and I was kind of happy too, because my commute was about an hour, 45 minutes one way, and then coming back. So I was happy about that. But the nature of job also required me to collaborate with, all department of my company. I have to do some design work. You have to know what's coming along the line. So that was kind of new to me, and I realized that I have to learn how to use Zoom, and I have to learn how to mute your mic when you're not talking, so people don't hear the background of your wife screaming at you, So I learned all that on the fly. And then another thing was that for the first time in my life, I actually be the imam during Eid for my family. So that was when the COVID was at the peak, and they were all shown how to make Eid prayer, takbir 7 times and 5 times, second rakah. So for my first time in my life, I actually did that for somebody behind me. You always be behind the imam, right? But this time around, we all experienced that. So that was new to me. And I felt what the imams, they've been praying for us, what they feel. And something I realized about that is that, subhanAllah, you can imagine how many imams, right, during that period, because everyone is becoming imams in his house. So there's a lot of imams praying. And I just hope Allah accept that prayer. Jazakumullah khair.
How has that been for some of us? The transition from praying at the masjid to having to sit, just pray yourself all by yourself at home. How is that? Because I like to look at this from a biopsychosocial and spiritual framework, whereby it's not just affecting your health, staying at home, not doing the things you were doing in the past. Your psychological, your mindset, your emotions, as well as your social interactions with people, but also spiritually. How has that affected some of us? Anyone? Sure. Okay. No, I just wanted to just touch base on what something he brought up, but after that we'll.
Well, sincerely, I pray for at least for 1 year at home. Sometimes I think I think maybe Allah going to accept my prayer, because I know what Muslim male should pray. We are not supposed to be praying at home all the time. I find it very difficult to adjust to that, because I still go to Juma service sometime, but I now understand the hadith of one of my friends talked to me that there's a hadith there's this illness like that, you should not contact it, avoid it, something like that. Okay, I say let me hold on to that hadith, and I think I have excuse. Let me be praying at home with the hope that Allah will accept, because I was not really very sure and happy by praying at home, but I'm just hoping Allah will accept that prayer I pray for just for 1 year.
Inshallah.
Ameen.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's a very important piece that I just wanted to make sure that we touched on, the spiritual aspect of adjusting to the pandemic. How have we been able to cope mentally, be able to say that, okay, this is a situation that is beyond my control. So even though I'm in conflict with what is actually prescribed by the Sunnah, I need to be at the masjid to say my salat, but that conflict that you're having within yourself, it's okay. But at the end of the day, knowing that your health is more important than than any other thing. So addressing that conflict is a very, very important thing that I want us to bring up, especially with when it comes to spirituality. We always battle. Shaitan will always come up and question your actions, but making sure that your spirituality is still intact by making sure that you're able to adjust to praying at home. Okay, just wanted to make sure I touched on that.
I do want to hear the question that we had here.
Yes, Brother Michelle.
The comment, rather.
Yeah, not really a question. It's a response to the initial question. So my own experience working from home about 19, 20 months now, right, still counting. So prior to the pandemic, I travel almost every week, which gave me my space, right, and gave my wife a space, and gave my kids their space. So we all know that 3 out of 7 days a week, we will see Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes Sunday afternoon, evening, I'm gone. Right now, they got into my space. I got into their space, and we just couldn't ignore right? We couldn't ignore or even respect individual space, right? Because you are home, you see what's going on, you have a responsibility to respond. And because you respond, right? Hey, this been going on for 10 years. Where have you been, right? We do this on Tuesday, Wednesday, no one bothers, right? Why are you coming in now? Right? Started realizing the gaps, right? You thought you were very close, but you are close because each of the segment has its own space. Then I have to be sleeping in the same room on the same bed with the same woman for 18 months, which I was not used to for 10 plus years, right? Like, we go into room, we go inside again, we go in the same bed, right? So it created unintended conflicts, right? Unintended, boredomness, unintended energy, right? It's not like, so we have to get to the point where we have to realize that, okay, this is really good. What was going on was bad, right? So we have to realize that the status quo now is really good for us and not that bad. What was going on that we didn't even know, we had too much space, we had too much gaps, was not really good. So that's the experience. I hope that when the new norm, right, whatever that is going to be, we will still respect that we learned a lesson during the pandemic and then move forward to the next. That's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Brother Mashal. Thank you so much, because that's a big chunk of what I want to talk about, and that shared space and how we've been able to adjust to it, because it causes conflict, it causes interpersonal relationship problems, and there's what's called ITP, interpersonal psychotherapy, whereby role transitioning to that new role of always being in that same space that you've not been in for about 10 years starts to cause some conflict. How do you deal with that going forward? How do you start to adjust to this new role, this transition that you're getting into? So we've seen this, I'm not going to dwell on statistics. I'm not going to talk too much about the numbers, but research has shown that there has been increase in depression, increase in anxiety, increase in physical abuse, increase in spousal abuse, increase in divorce rates, increase in suicide. From the research from Dr. Raina Awad, who's at Stanford University, said within the Muslim community, there has been increase in all of these negative aspects during COVID. So what are some things that we can do to start to adjust to this, example that was shared, being in the same space with your spouse, with the kids? I have an experience that I also want to share. But before I even go there, there's one thing I wanted to mention. Some of us, like Dr. Brother Mashal said, how many of us have now been able to see some of the intricacies or the workings of the home, okay, that we were not used to seeing? How many of us now see that, oh my goodness, this my spouse, this my wife, she has been doing all these things that I never even thought about. Now, if we're able to see that, what have we done about it? Have we been able to acknowledge that the work she's put in? And if not, okay, I know I don't want to sound mushy, but are we going to? I want to encourage us, okay, to take a step back and make that comment to our spouses and say, wow, since the pandemic, I've really seen some of the things that have been going on in the home that I was not used to seeing. And because of that, I want to acknowledge your effort, the things that you've been doing. That's a step to improving that interpersonal relationship, that space that you're sharing that's causing some conflict. Acknowledgement is one major step in that right direction to say, okay, I see this as an issue, or I see this as something that I've not experienced before, and I want to acknowledge it. I want to bring it to the forefront so we can talk about it and hopefully see where that takes you and your relationship.
Dr. Gill, I have a question because what you're saying reminds me of, there's pros and potential like quote unquote cons, with everything that's happened with the pandemic. A pro for someone may be, like was mentioned, I don't have to drive an hour and 45 minutes. The con, I had to learn how to use Zoom, A pro may be, well, I'm around the house more. A con may be, there's this thing that my wife does that I don't like it that I'm finding. So for those who are finding quote unquote cons, right, where, it's fine, I'm working from home, or it's fine, I'm able to be around the kids more, but in that they're finding my kid does this, or, when I'm working at home, there's always this noise going on. What advice do you have to adjust to those cons that people are identifying in their lives? And we didn't hear from everybody. I'm sure others have, things that are like, yeah, it's good, but this is something I noticed because of this change,
Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. One way to put it, the words that you've been saying in English is kamakora, because you're in that same space, just getting upset, for things that you are not used to, seeing in the house. The first step is to acknowledge, again, going back to that word, acknowledge what is within your control, what you're seeing that as a problem, and addressing what you bring to the picture, or what you are adding to that picture. A better way to say this is, most of us have been on flights before, right? Okay. When we hear the announcement of that you put on your oxygen mask, put on your oxygen mask first before you try to help someone else, right? We hear that announcement all the time. In case of an emergency, in case of a crisis, make sure you put on your own oxygen mask first before you help someone else. What that is saying is, acknowledge your own problem first. Address you first before you start to talk about someone else or talk to someone else about what's going on or helping them in their own distress. So this is very important, that you want to look within you and say, what is it that I am doing before I start to talk to this other person, the kid that is running around? Now that I'm at home, it's more obvious to me how often my daughters mess up their rooms. Before, I never even thought about it as a thing that, oh, their room is all messed up. And when I see that, the first thing is like, come on, clean up your room. All that was not there before. But when I could take a step back and ask myself, what is really going on in my mind when I walked in that door? Was I upset about something? Was I thinking about something that just, triggered me? If I can do that, believe you me, okay, that you start to work on yourself, be more mindful be more present about what's going on within you before you start to address other issues in the house, okay? And the other way to do that, being mindful, being more cautious about the words that we use, is by making sure that you yourself, you're doing okay, physically, mentally, emotionally. And how can you do that? By self-care. We've talked about this in our last session. How do you engage in self-care? making sure that some brothers have shared some things that they do, taking their bike, going out for a ride, communicating with family and friends, making sure that you have your own space. Like Brother Mashal said, I find myself in the shared space. My wife, my kids, everyone is just around. I don't have my own time. Take 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes. Some folks will say, "Oh, when I say my salat, I sit down, I read the Quran." That's fine. But how many times do we try? How many times do we try to take just 10 minutes and sit on our own and just think and just process the things that are going on through our minds and being in touch with our own emotions? If I ask us, about our emotions, what emotions have you experienced during this pandemic? Most of us might not be able to answer that question. But trust me, there are some different emotions. There are emotions of anger, there are emotions of sadness, there are emotions of grief, but we don't come in contact with those emotions. We don't acknowledge those emotions. And sometimes when we walk through that door, like I said, with our families in that close space, we're not in contact with that emotion. And guess what happens? Why is the dishes in the plate, in the sink? Why is the door open? Who left the restroom? Sometimes we come in thinking about something that brought us some grief, that brought us some anxiety. Maybe we're thinking about our income. That's part of the pandemic issues. The business closed, things that we can't have access to anymore, causing us some anxiety. Another thing I want to point out that in men, I think I mentioned this in the last session, in men, depression manifests most times as anger. Yeah, we might be depressed. Most times in men, it manifests as anger. So if we're not in contact and saying, what's really going on within me? Did I take some time to breathe? Did I take some time to I don't want to use the word meditate here, but did I take some time to be mindful? Just sit with my emotions and notice what I'm feeling inside before I made that comment to my spouse that I now regret. Did I take time to realize the conversation I had on the phone a minute ago that has caused me to be a little bit anxious? I didn't check my blood pressure. I walked into the room and I saw my child sitting down, doing nothing. What are you doing? You should go and get your book to read. But I'm a Qurani. Because why? We're not in contact with our emotions.
So, is there anything else that we should put in our toolkit, right, for dealing with challenges that we find in this new norm? So, if anybody has something they want to share, because I know we just talked about like at the house, right, how you interact with someone or how you interact with the kids. If there's anyone else with another type of challenge that you're finding, please, feel free to raise your hand. We can address, inshallah.
Or if you have any questions, go ahead.
If our sisters were here today, they will have a lot to say about us, right? So help us understand what they are thinking and help us understand how we could proactively solve their problem or even in retrospect solve their problem. Because I'll tell you that we don't have problems loosely, but they have problems with us. So what are the problems the sisters are having with us being around, that we are not doing, or the role that we are not playing enough, role as husbands, role as fathers, that we as men, we need to take ownership of and help them to help us. Let's speak for them. Let's speak to them.
Okay, that's a good question. I think one way to look at it is we all have We all have issues. We all have things that we deal with. The most important thing is communication. That's it. Communication, communication is key. If we look at what's called the four horsemen of apocalypse, in our conversations, this is a Gottman's, it's a relationship guru in psychology, whereby we want to identify some issues in the way we communicate. Okay, if we can identify those issues, okay, contempt, contempt, stonewalling. Sometimes we have an issue, we walk out of the room, we don't want to discuss those things. Some of these issues, or some of these ways that we communicate, or problems with our communication, is the basis of the most problems that our spouses have with us. Yes, we can. They want us to do certain things, but the truth is, most of us are already so accustomed to our ways. We're stuck in our ways already. It's like saying that you want to teach an old cat tricks or something. I think that's the way the saying goes. It's not as easy. Again, the most important thing is, how do you communicate? How do you acknowledge your own issues? And then finally, I think a big one with the sisters, like Brother Mashal asked, is something I mentioned before, and I really didn't want to forget it. How many times have we acknowledged their efforts? Now that we're at home, we see, I'm just repeating myself again, I'm sorry, but just to answer that question, we see the intricacies of how the house functions. There are some things that I wasn't aware of. Now I see those things and I'm like, wow, how do you juggle all these things? And I'm employing us today, if we haven't done it already, I'm sure some brothers would have already done that. I'm sure, like my brother Alati at the back, he will have done this. He's a lover boy. So he would have told his wife, oh, I appreciate what you're doing for X, Y. So if you're able to do that, then you have solved half of the problem already. You have solved half of the problem already with your spouses. Acknowledge their efforts. Like I said, we're always going to have issues. No relationship is perfect. This pandemic has caused one of the things that I've already mentioned, interpersonal relationship issues, emotional abuse. Again, emotional abuse just goes to communication. How do we communicate with our spouses that might cause them to start feeling emotionally distressed? So we have to take note of some of these things so that we can improve our relationships while we're in this space, okay? While we're adjusting to this pandemic. Huh? Okay, sorry, go ahead. Well,
something that I experienced during this period. Initially, when the pandemic started, and everybody has to switch to a different mode, it was kind of even though I didn't like it, it was kind of interesting the first few months. But as it became prolonged, I would say now I relate with one phrase that my kids use. I'm bored. I get bored, as in, like, I know I have. It becomes kind of monotonous. Wake up, go to the laptop and check your emails, respond to emails, and do stuff. And you're there for the next 8 hours. Run downstairs, grab something to eat, and say, what again? Tomorrow it's the same cycle. Next tomorrow it's the same cycle. From Monday I start thinking of Friday already. So Even though it's kind of, oh yeah, we're not driving to work, where, we don't have to go to Mumini for meetings. But I think all of those mix, we may not realize it in a way. I think it works way, maybe for me, it works way better. I kind of, today is Sunday, I already started thinking of, oh my goodness, it's Monday again, like I feel kind of imprisoned.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that sentiment, the way you just shared, a lot of us go through it, and that's a very good one. One thing I wanted to share, I had a bunch of things that I had lined up, but because of time, I'm just going all around and trying to make sure I'm answering a couple of or touching a couple of the things I have here. That's something that is very important. And I think the most important way to just answer what you said about the children is ask yourself the question, are you talking to your kids? We've been talking to ourselves for so long, about ourselves for so long, about how this pandemic is affecting us. Trust me, that the pandemic is affecting the youth, the kids, just as much. I'm bored. You feel frustrated. They're tired. School, the whole system, the school system had changed as well. My daughter coming in telling me that, oh, I think one of my teachers had COVID. She looks anxious. Her mom is panicking. I'm thinking we're all in the same boat. The most important thing to do is not just to try and address it with your wife and say, that's what most of us will do. Do we take the time to sit with that kid and say, so you just said your teacher, how do you feel about that? Is it causing you some stress or something? We hardly ever do stuff like that. We don't talk to the kids about emotional things. How do you feel? With your teacher, your classmate didn't come to class, or even your homework. You've said that this whole change has been a little bit. You have this. How do you feel? You're bored. What do you think is causing you to be bored? Is there anything that's going on? Or let's start to talk about, some of these issues with our kids, because they are impacted just as much as we are. Okay. Anything else to add to that? Okay. Alex Salam, sir.
Okay. Mine is like a double sword because I nearly retired before COVID hit. I was trying to adjust to new lifestyle of retiree, staying home and doing a little bit of work. All of a sudden, pandemic came. You can't even go to the office, and then here you are, two systems that you have to adopt to. And I found myself sleeping till 11 o'clock, then going to my room or going to the office in my room and do a little work and then looking at the TV and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, my wife had a FMLA. Now she has to stay home. Hey, we are not used to sitting around the house together. So now I'm having to adjust myself to say, and then she will say, "Oh, what do you want to eat?" Nobody ever asked me that during lunchtime. And now you're asking me, I won't even know how to answer that. I wasn't even ready to eat. So it's too much. So I'm sorry. How can we cope with that?
Yeah.
I'm managing myself to cope with it, but I probably need a little professional advice. I can't walk away from the house. I can't go to the backyard by myself. Or I don't know. Please advise.
Thank you for that question. And like you said, it's a double-edged sword. Trying to deal with both your retirement and then at the same time, the pandemic hits, and then it's just convoluted. Everything just seems all mushed together. One of the things you pointed out is how do you adjust to this? At this stage, diagnostically, it's no more an adjustment, because adjustment will be for 6 months thereabout. After the event, 3 weeks, and then 3 months, 6 months. So now it's no more, we're not adjusting anymore. We're trying to, get a way to start to live this norm, which exactly this topic is about. How do we transition from that? The last time we had this was about adjusting, because what COVID just hit. So we wanted to see, how are we going to adjust? Now it's the new norm. I was going to ask the question, how many of us really think that we're going to return back to the way things were back before COVID? Probably not. A lot of things are going to stay the same. So the most important thing is, how do you start to incorporate some of the things that you're doing to keep you safe, or even just your daily routine? How do you start to make that a way of life? Importantly, starting to one of the things I mentioned earlier, reinventing yourself, coming up with a skill set that you probably say, okay, maybe I could start off to do, doing this, a new hobby, thinking about new goals, setting up a SMART goal. Or I want to do this X, Y, and Z in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months. Starting to find ways to get yourself up and active again. Like I said before, some brothers have talked about self-care, going out, riding a bike, exercising, working out, doing things that will keep you healthy. Some people even, spirituality. How have you started to incorporate the new norm in your religion? For your religion, reciting the Quran, or memorizing the Quran, taking up some of these things that maybe in the past have dropped off of your agenda because you are working so hard. Looking back and saying, I want to do X, Y, and Z to keep me busy, because again, this is the new norm. It's about incorporating these things into your life. It's not about adjusting to it and hopefully waiting for COVID to go, and then you'll go back to what way things were before. So you want to reinvent yourself. I think that's just the best word to use at this point. Start to pick up new skills, doing new things to get you, going again, basically. And with regards to the spouse, communication, talking about the shared space and being able to have time for yourself. Take 10 minutes all by yourself in the house on your own and talking about it. Not that you want to go, you're having a conversation, watch TV, and then you just go ahead and just sit down somewhere for, will come and say, kilo day. Let's talk about it at maybe 8 o'clock after Isha, after Maghrib. I'm going to have 10 minutes to myself. And then she understands that, so that you can have a way to, be mindful, have your own space, and do your own thing.
I think our last comment, Dr. Abido.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I think I was going to talk in that direction of new norm, that the COVID impacted, people differently. It's not like a size fits all, In my experience, my daughter, when the state school is gonna start, she said, "No, I'm good. I don't want to go to school," because she's enjoying, she's able to do her work, I'm able to supervise as well. She felt comfortable, a lady as well, because she has to dress and this and that. In fact, I have been a fan of online study before the COVID as well. That's me. I remember my wife, we used to argue. She said, "No, I have to go." I said, "Look, man, of course, woman now. Say, do your calculation. You have to take like an hour or so." We do, because I usually discuss. That's what I do. I engage them. I respect your views, but I engage anybody, my children, my wife, but of course, if you chose to take your decision, I'll support you. Of course, I'm spending my money for her. She went to school. So you're going to spend hours to prepare to do this and dress and that. You're going to drive and then you're going to go to school and all this stuff. And you're going to come back again. If you spend all that hours, doing your stuff, I believe you're going to be more productive. But said, I like class. I said, okay, when she come back from class, what have you learned today? Tell me. Without you studying again, I don't think the teacher, whatever the teacher teaches, without you reviewing, it's not going to be in your head. You still have to spend time to. So I say all those. He said, I want to go to school physically in the class. I said, okay. But later she realized that for my daughter, she doing school, she's getting good grades. She doesn't want to go back. When they say they come. So, and I think for many as well, those who have enjoyed the stay-at-home work, and then they felt even both individual and corporate in terms of them, less spending less on infrastructure and so on. They say, okay, man, if you want to stay at home, since we see our productivity did not reduce, sometimes maybe it increased. Do it. So you have better life, you enjoy, and then we also spend less, and people can go. You don't have to stay at home. When it hit, I was in California, right? And they said, work at home. I said, at home? It doesn't really matter whether I'm here or I'm in Nigeria, because I have to use the internet. He said, yes. So I flew back to what? Texas, and that's working at home, although I was working in California and doing my thing. So I enjoyed that. So if you're really busy, except you really do not have something to do, that's when the stress comes in. But you have things to do, in my opinion, even if you're at home, you have your daily tasks. Get yourself busy, and then it's advisable. Even if you're in the office as well, you can be doing the same thing. You go to the office, drive down there, you sit by the computer. In fact, it's advisable you don't stay too much on the computer. So you have to still exercise. So whether at home or in the office, you should take time off to change your location, your position, ergonomics, move around, go to the beach, go wherever. So that's what I'll advise. But yes, COVID has come. There's a change of how we do things, and I don't think it will go anytime soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for sharing that. One more question. Oh, okay. So we're gonna pass this going again.
Actually, it's not going to be a question. It's going to be a form of a response, right? Trying to what Dr. Abdul said, providing a balance, right? A balance, because it depends on where you are. It depends on where your wife, your kids, or the environment are. So we had a study. Having worked from home for more than a year. By the way, we saved a lot of money. We became very profitable. The company became very profitable. We paid people more than they were being paid, even in very good years, right? Because we saved over $300 million in travel expenses. Over $300 million in travel expenses, right? So if you put that back into the pool, we became very profitable. We saved a lot of money on real estate. We became very profitable. But we also had a lot of crises with people, a lot of welfare, a lot of well-being, a lot of mental health, a lot of suicide, right? Issues went up. A lot of our employees got into divorce, got into violence. People that were always on the road, now they have to be at home with their spouses. They were not used to that. People accepted jobs with the intent of, okay, hey, my travel expenses is going to be on American Express, thanks to Deloitte. My mortgage is going to be on American Express, thanks to Deloitte, right? People don't have permanent houses, right? So now they are being forced to a situation of where they have to be permanent. We have to have a location, right? So we have to look at both sides. Now, when after the study, asking people who wanted to go back to the office, right? Majority did not even want to go back. But we didn't have a particular group that wanted to be at zero. No one wanted to be at home. So we wanted to have the flexibility of, look, I want to be in the office to socialize. Okay, hey, I want to be in the office to socialize, not to work. I miss Marshall. I want to see Marshall, right? I want someone that's going to buy me breakfast and charge American Express. I want someone that's going to buy me lunch, charge American Express. I want to go to the office to socialize, not to work. I'm not going to the office to be on Zoom. I'm not going to the office to be on my laptop, right? So majority said, okay, we want to be back in the office, not full time, not 100%, not one Monday through Friday, not more than twice a week, but we are going to retain real estate for 2 days a week. If you are not coming to the office, right? But if you are going to come to the office for 2 days a week, we're still going to pay the same amount, right? It doesn't make any business sense, right? But it makes social sense because we have to take care of well-being. And a lot of people, Apple, Google, Deloitte UK, they're like, work from anywhere. They killed us. So why is it that Google, Apple, and all the other major companies, they'll say work from anywhere? And we will say we want them to be back in the office, right? A lot of conversations are taking place around that, right? We are an organization, we have social responsibility. Part of the social responsibility is to attend to the welfare, well-being, and all those things. We have economic responsibility to make money, be profitable as possible, right? But we can only make money when we retain people, and we are losing a lot of people more than we hired. Every day, every week, every time. Yesterday, I got someone resign. You cannot make money when you don't have those people that are going to do that work, right? That is the balance. That is struggle. There is no right or wrong answer right now. It depends on where you are.
It depends.
A lot of people that are paying $2,000 for their rent in downtown or Hyde, they will now come to full share, pay $1,500. Instead of 2 rooms in downtown, they have 4 rooms, right? And you now want them to go back to downtown and be in traffic, and they have to buy their clothes. They have to go to dry clean every week. For me, it's been a challenge, a mental health challenge for me. I was used to being on the road. I like to have my space. I like to be in Uber. I like to change the bed every day, change the address, change the room, change all those things, right? I like to have breakfast with this client in California and sleep in Florida. That's what I've been used to, right? And that has affected my productivity. The more challenges, right? The more problems I'm solving, right? The more productive I am. The less problems I have to solve, like, in 1 hour. Next. Let's spend 5 hours on this one, right? Mm-hmm. It affects productivity too, right? But at the end of the day, individuals, I look at my kids. Sometimes I am helpless because they tell you stuff that you don't even know how to respond to that. You're like, share one your journey, or you don't get it, right? I'm like, I'm bored. Kilo Chieto are bored. I'm like, there's nothing to do here. Right? You don't get it, that you don't understand, right? I was like, I don't understand, right? So it's again, it's not a really question. It's we all need help in different ways because what we think we are doing right with them, with our kids, right, can be counterproductive, right? Because once they go back, or if they don't have the opportunity of going back, they are going to miss that stage in their life. My middle daughter did not have the senior year experience, right? She doesn't know what the senior year experience is. Now, Ima did not know what the senior year experience is. Ikima is back in school now. She's not telling me senior year experience. Like, well, homecoming is next week, Daddy. Okay, you're already home. Why? What's homecoming? You know, those things. So we need help. We need to have the conversation, and people need to, people who have the experience need to help us.
And that's what I wanted this session to be about: sharing your experience. One thing I mentioned earlier before Wai speaks, I said talk to your children. Talk to the kids. I think I should have said listen to your kids, because I think we're already used to talking. Listen. I think that's the most important thing I should have said, actually. But go ahead.
Okay. My question, I'm going to be straight. As a parent, I'm going to cite a scenario. When you have a children and they already know their role to play at home. Maybe you assign this one to wash the plate, this one to mop the floor, and the mother around 2 p.m. you have to cook my food. I have to eat by 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Yeah. And now you get home. I want you to.
I don't want to stop you, but you said something that
you-
I want to hop on real quick. You have to. Both of you are in the same house.
We are all the same. I'm just giving a scenario. It's not happening to me. I'm not saying something.
All right, go ahead.
I'm just giving you a scenario because you made mention of Ikora, Ipe Ikora. You say when somebody is angry, but you don't really notice or you don't know that you are angry at home. And when you get home, you see the plate is not washed, the floor is dirty, the food is not served, and the primary assignment we gave them, nobody did anything. And if you react, maybe you just say something. Okay, you are watching TV. What about the floor? See the floor. Go and do the floor. You go and do the plates. What about the food? Oh, go and tell your mom. Go and prepare my food.
We find ourselves as project managers at home.
In that scenario, how do you know that you are not talking right to these people as a parent or something?
Good question.
Mashallah, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. So that's before I give it to Dr. Gill to address that, as well as what Brother Mashal said, as well as Dr. Abidogun, as well as my father, just want to thank everybody for sitting with us as we talk about this, what Dr. Gill said, transition, right? It's no longer the adjustment, but rather the transition to this new norm, given all the changes that have occurred with COVID-19. So Dr. Gill, to close us out, right? Taking in all the input that our audience so graciously provided, all these experiences, whether it's, decisions or it's family or it's work, all these changes and all these adjustments are part of our transition. What can you give us as our full toolkit to take with us that fits in these different realms?
I like the synopsis. I like the way you kind of framed everything, and that should help us conclude this session. Which, again, I must say thank you very much, everyone, for sharing, asking questions, your own experiences. I really appreciate it. One thing that I want us to start off with is understanding the privileges that we had pre-COVID. Understanding that things can change suddenly. How well prepared are we, okay, to adjust in sudden situations? How do we know what to do? How can we know what to do in case something like this were to happen again? Are we ready? Do we have the skill set to be able to improve ourselves? Okay, now we're already talking about transitioning, reinventing yourself, doing things that will keep you going. But most importantly, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, are we fit? One thing I want us to understand is self-care, taking care of yourself emotionally, is very, very important. Understanding yourself before you attempt to understand others. Have that listening ear. Make sure you're patient when you're talking to your spouse, your kids. Listen Be an active listener, basically, before you speak. Because if we try to process, most times what we're trying to do is we are processing what that person is saying just to talk back. If we get into a room, we want to be in we want to be mindful of our emotions. Again, I just want to go back to this because we as men, especially Africans, we don't talk about emotions. We hardly do. But guess what? Emotions are healthy. Even anger is a good emotion if we use it the right way. If we can acknowledge our emotions, we'll be able to tell ourselves that, living room, man, I was upset at the bill that popped up on my account on my phone. That's why I'm talking to this kid this way. Then that's just being mindful. So mindfulness is very important. Self-care, taking care of yourself, doing things that will keep you busy, especially for the youth too. Listening, being an active listener. These are the toolkit. These are some things that I'm mentioning. Being an active listener, being mindful of your emotions, your environment, being in the moment, experiencing things, and noticing everything that is around you. Okay. And then one other thing that I mentioned was reinventing yourself, picking up new things, picking up new hobbies, goals, setting a smart goal, things that you've turned down or you've not done in a long time, starting to do those things again. For our elders, checking, on our elders, engaging them in some things that can keep them busy as well. Like that was mentioned earlier. Some of them are retired. It's a double whammy for some of them. Making sure that they're still engaged in the community, doing things, going to see them, taking them things, visiting with them, and also Zooming, calling them, very, very important. I think I'm just going to sign off with this because of time. One very important thing, if we notice that some of these stressors are still lingering, or some of the symptoms, like I've said, the emotion, the depression, the sadness, the grief, that were anxiety, the worry, loss of job, is still lingering, please, please, please reach out. Like Dr. Mashal said, Brother Mashal said, what are some places that we can get assistance, some help, professional help? Reach out to a professional, because once the adjustment changes from 6 months becomes chronic, it can end up being a clinical issue. So reach out, talk to a professional, a therapist, a psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong. In most conferences, conventions now, ISNA last week, mental health stigma is a real thing. Being able to talk about your emotions, being able to talk about things that are going on with you is very, very important to get by. Salam alaikum. Thank you very much for your contributions, and we appreciate everyone's support. Thank you again. May Almighty Allah accept this from us all as an act of ibadah and reward us all for being here. Jazakallah khair.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Giwa, for your insight, expertise, and knowledge you put forth. With that, I'll hand it back over to the organizer. Jazakallah khair again, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Takbirullah. Really want to thank the presenters, Brother Bola, Giwa, and Brother Shola Oyewu. Nice to have you. We really enjoyed the presentation. Well, Abdulaziz is having something to that effect, but he has only given me the mic to appreciate them and to thank them for their time. May Almighty Allah reward you for this effort. Jazakallah khairan. I think Ramasha has 5 busa. Takbirullah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much. So I will really want to thank for the advice, for the inside information on how we navigate
this, mental drain, mental effect of COVID and what have you. May Almighty Allah is the situation on us, and accept all our ibadah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much. And we also want to thank our elders. I know Dr. Larry will just be smiling now because this is part of the work he has done ahead. So, and this is part of giving back, because before now we used to have him, sit up here and give us this kind of information. And all our elders. So, inshallah, what we're going to do now, we know the time is fast spent. We still have the session to come up from Muminin Relief, and Dr. Abdul is already in the house. But shortly before we do that, MBF cuts across all generations, and that is part of rebranding MBF, to make sure that all our youth, they also have one or two things to say when it comes to MBF. So without wasting time, I'll be calling to the high table here